And hello again from Fox News in Washington. Today from the White House. We're on the president's patio just outside the Oval Office. President Trump, you've agreed to answer all manner of questions, no subject off limits. Thank you, and welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
Thank you very much.
Let's start with the surge of the coronavirus across the country in recent months. You still talk about it as, quote, burning embers. But I want to put up a chart that shows where we are with the illness over the last 4 months. As you can see, we hit a peak here in April, 36,000 cases a day.
You gotta love that Chris Wallace has to pull a piece of paper out to point him through to talk Trump through it. We're already off to a good start.
Yeah, cases.
Then it went down, and now since June, it has gone up, more than doubled. One day this week, 75,000 new cases, more than double.
Chris, that's because we have great testing, because we have the best testing in the world. If we didn't test, you wouldn't be able to show that chart. If we tested half as much, those numbers would be down.
But this isn't burning embers, sir. This is a forest fire.
But I say flames. We'll put out the flames, and we'll put out, in some cases, just burning embers. We also have burning embers. We have embers, and we do have flames. Florida became more flame-like, but it's going to be under control. And you know, it's not just this country, it's many countries. We don't talk about it in the news. They don't talk about Mexico and Brazil and still parts of Europe, which actually got hit sooner than us, so it's a little ahead of us in that sense. But you take a look.
I don't know about Mexico, but I know even though as bad as Brazil's been doing, they're still doing better than us, which is saying a lot given the shit Brazilian Trump's doing.
Why don't they talk about Mexico, which is not helping us? And all I can say is thank God I built most of the wall, because if I didn't have the wall up, we would have a much bigger problem with Mexico.
But sir,
you haven't built most of the wall, Trump. You've done like next to nothing with it.
We have the 7th highest mortality rate in the world. Our mortality rate is higher than Brazil. It's higher than Russia, and the European Union has us on a travel ban.
Yeah, I think what we'll do, well, we have them on a travel ban too, Chris. I closed them off. If you remember, I was the one that did the European Union very early. But when you talk about mortality rates, I think it's the opposite. I think we have one of the lowest mortality rates in the world. We're going to take a look.
We had 900 deaths on a single day.
We will take a look.
This week.
Ready?
You can check it out.
Please get me the mortality rate?
Yeah.
Kaylee's right here.
There's a couple other times, just from the clips I've seen beforehand, that he calls over to get his hand-picked numbers. Let's see if if Chris Wallace shows the two different ones that I saw in the other story.
I heard we had one of the lowest, maybe the lowest mortality rate anywhere in the world. Do you have the numbers, please? Because I heard we had the best mortality rate.
The case rate of similarly situated countries, as Dr. Burks points out, and this is
number one low mortality rate. I hope you show the scenario because it shows what fake news is all about. Okay,
I don't think I'm fake news, but we'll put we'll put our stats on.
You said we had the worst mortality rate in the world, and we have the best.
All right, it's a little complicated, but bear with us. We went with numbers from Johns Hopkins University, which charted the mortality rate for 20 countries hit by the virus. The U.S. ranked 7th, better than the United Kingdom, but worse than Brazil and Russia. The White House went with this chart from the European CDC, which shows Italy and Spain doing worse, but countries like Brazil and South Korea doing better. Other countries doing better, like Russia, aren't included in the White House chart. California, locking down again. Florida, deadliest day of the entire.
So that's, oh man. Hopefully this turns some people away. It just shows how much Trump's gonna lie. But I doubt it. But I give some credit to Chris Wallace here.
Pandemic. Hospitals at capacity in a number of places around the country. Shortages of testing. Shortages of personal protective equipment for nurses and doctors. A lot of people say this is because we don't have a national plan. You talk about states. We don't have a national plan. Do you take responsibility for that?
Look, I take responsibility always for everything because it's ultimately my job too. I have to get everybody in line. Some governors have done well. Some governors have done poorly. They're supposed to have supplies. They didn't have. I supplied everybody. Now we have somewhat of a surge in certain areas, and in other areas we're doing great. but we have a surge in certain areas. But you don't hear people complaining about ventilators. We've got all the ventilators we can use. We're supplying them to other countries. We go out into parking lots and everything. Everybody gets a test. We find if we did half the testing, with all of that being said, I'm glad we did it. This is the right way to do it. I'm glad we did what we're doing. But we have more tests by far than any country in the world.
But, sir, testing is up 37%.
Well, that's good.
I understand. Cases are up 194%. It isn't just that testing has gone up, it's that the virus has spread. The positivity rate has increased. The virus is worse than it was.
Many of those cases.
And that's right. And then he likes to push just the raw numbers of tests that we have. I have to go look. Although there's been some really big testing days recently, but from what I remember about a week ago or so, we still weren't, as a testing rate, we weren't testing the most in the world.
Cases are young people that would heal in a day. They have the sniffles, and we put it down as a test. Many of them, don't forget, I guess it's like 99.7%. People are going to get better, and in many cases, they're going to get better very quickly. We go out and we look, and then on the news, look, if you go back to the news, all of your, even your wonderful competitors, you'll see cases are up. Well, cases are up. Many of those cases shouldn't even be cases. Cases are up because we have the best testing in the world, and we have the most testing. No country.
I mean, they're cases because they come back testing positive, right? Like, this narrative that Trump's trying to spin to make it sound like it's nothing there. It's like they're cases that they're... So, obviously we didn't test as much as we did. We wouldn't have nearly the numbers that we have here, but we'd still have really high numbers because of the increasing positive test rate, right? So even though we're doing more and more and more tests, we're finding, 8, 9, I think we might have, I don't know if we've quite hit 10% yet as positive test rate nationwide, but yeah, it's not, it wouldn't matter either way. We would still be seeing this increase.
Has ever done what we've done in terms of testing. We are the envy of the world, they call, and they say the most incredible job anybody's done is our job on testing, because we're going to very shortly be up to 50 million tests. You look at other countries, they don't even do tests. They do tests if somebody walks into the hospital, they're sick, they're really sick, they test them then, or they'll test them in a doctor's office. But they don't go around and have massive areas of testing, and we do. And I'm glad we do. But it really skews the numbers.
I'm going to do you a favor, because I'm sure a lot of people listening right now are going to say, Trump, he tries to play it down. He tries to make it not seem as serious as it is.
No, this is very serious.
75,000 cases a day.
Show me the death chart.
Well, I don't have the death chart
here. Well, the death chart is much more important.
I can tell you, the death chart is 1,000 cases a day.
Excuse me. It's all too much. It shouldn't be one case. It came from China. They should have never let it escape. They should have never let it out. But it is what it is. Take a look at Europe. Take a look at the numbers in Europe. And by the way, they're having surges.
Cases are 6,000 in the whole European Union.
They don't test. They don't test like we test.
Is it possible that they don't have the virus as badly as we do?
No, it's possible that they don't test. That's what's possible. We find cases, and many of those cases heal automatically. We're finding, in a way, we're creating trouble.
What does he mean by heal automatically, right? Like, is he stumbling his way through to say that they're mild cases or whatever? We're aware that a good chunk are rather mild, but, the fact that cases are going up and, the asymptomatic spread that you can send around with this disease is an issue, right?
Certainly.
And the escape from China or whatever, so it shouldn't have got out, so it's not my fault, not anything there, not anything that we could have done anything better. There's plenty that they could have done, right? And it's been said so the whole long way. Trump's been pushing it off, and now there's a recent report that, according to some of the internal numbers, I think it was the New York Times, I think that got a hold of these numbers, that Trump wants to let it kind of run wild now because that's his best bet of winning in November, because if it's a huge breakout spread all over the place, that it'll convince people to stay home and not go out to the polls and vote, right? And that's based on all the polling data right now, that's his best chance of re-election. So I mean, he's a piece of shit. He's doing every step along the way. He's done what he thought would help him best in re-election, and he's fucked it up. And now he's gonna let it fuck up worse if the reports are correct, because he wants to win re-election. So he's gonna make this worse before it ever gets better, just for his own personal gain.
We're creating trouble for the fake news to come along and say, oh, we have more cases. Look, we did something that nobody's ever done. Not only the ventilators, where we're supplying them all over the world. We did a testing program, the likes of which nobody's ever done before.
The head of the CDC, Dr. Redfield, said this on Tuesday.
I do think the fall and the winter of 2020 and 2021 are going to be probably one of the most difficult times that we've experienced in American public health.
Do you agree with Dr. Redfield?
I don't know, and I don't think he knows. I don't think anybody knows with this. This is a very tricky deal. Everybody thought the summer it would go away and it would come back in the fall. Well, in the summer it came. They used to say the heat was good for it, and it really knocks it out.
That's what you said, Trump. That's what you were pushing. I hope Chris gets him on this. But I mean, that's one of the things he was pushing, to not worry about it and not lock down.
Remember? And then it might come back in the fall. So they got that one wrong. They got a lot wrong. They got a lot wrong. The World Health got a tremendous amount wrong. They basically did whatever China wanted them to, and will save now almost $500 million a year, which is not.
So I've covered the claims about the World Health Organization that the Republicans and conservatives are pushing, and kind of the misinformation they're spreading. All of it's a lie, right? So one of the big ones is that, they said it's no human-to-human transfer or whatever. And they're talking about one tweet for a press release that said, at this time, there's no evidence for human-to-human transfer. Not that it couldn't be. If you read the further down in the release that, it's possible that it could be, but because it's not, we don't have enough evidence right now to say it, from a scientific standpoint. They just went along with it, and then eventually they said, "Well, we have the evidence now that it's going. This is how we do it."
Nice, but the World Health got a lot wrong.
But this is one of the sharpest criticisms of you.
I agree.
People say that you talk about the world as you'd like to see it rather than follow the science.
No,
Well, let me just ask the question, sir. Why on earth would your administration be involved in a campaign at this point to discredit Dr. Fauci, who is the nation's top infectious disease expert?
Because we're not. If one man from my administration doesn't like him because he made a few mistakes. Look, Dr. Fauci said don't wear a mask. Dr. Fauci told me not to ban China. It would be a big mistake. I did it over and above his recommendation. Dr. Fauci then said you saved tens of thousands of lives, more than that. He said you saved.
So what I remember of this is that it was the N95 masks that Fauci was telling you not to grab, right? Because they didn't want panic buyers grabbing all the N95 masks and leaving the people on the front lines in the medical industry that were dealing with this without the masks. That's my recollection of stuff there. There might be some other things in the timeline, but given that Trump's gonna lie and say all sorts of shit, my recollection probably more on point, just kind of like with the WHO stuff.
Saved tens of thousands of lives. Dr. Fauci's made some mistakes, but I spoke to him yesterday at length. I have a very good relationship with Dr. Fauci.
But sir, this weekend, your White House put out a series of statements, so-called mistakes, that Dr. Fauci had made. One of your closest aides, one of your right-hand men, Daniel Scavino, put out this. Have you seen this?
Well,
this
Doctor,
cartoon? Dr. Fawcett, it shows him as a leaker and an alarmist.
Oh, I don't know that he's a leaker.
Why would
he's a little bit of an alarmist. That's okay. A little bit
He's
of an alarmist.
I'm an alarmist?
A little bit of an alarmist. Let me just say, Dr. Fauci at the beginning, and again, I have a great relationship with him. I spoke to him at length yesterday. Dr. Fauci at the beginning said, this will pass, don't worry about it, this will pass.
Oh, hey, how's it going, Rhett? Yeah, I'm getting into it. I've seen a couple bits of this. Some of it's gold. Like, I don't know if you've seen some of the clips going around that are coming up later on, but it's gold, and we're kind of already off on a good start here for mining this nonsense. It's scary that he's, the president, saying this shit, but Man, is it a mess.
He was wrong. Dr. Fauci said, don't ban China. Don't ban China. I did. He then admitted that I was right.
But you made mistakes too.
I guess everybody makes
I was going to say, you said at one point,
It's one person coming in from China, and we have it under control. It's going to be just fine.
when you have 15 people, and the 15
Oh yes, I saw that clip. We're gonna laugh at that plenty. Oh my god, that's oh, the cognitive test. I looked at it, it's like, you know, I don't know if you just, well, I know what it is. It's Trump's stroking his ego. You know, everything he does is the best in the world. He's gonna sell himself that way. And so a simple cognitive test, he's got to treat like, oh, it's the hardest thing, and I did the best ever, and I'm all this great stuff. But it, he puts it up, and it's, oh, it's a mess. Yeah, Chris did a really good job, right? I'm surprised Fox News lets him do that. My only hope is that more and more people see this, and given that I've seen, I think he does the polls like right before the cognitive tests, and you know, I know Fox News viewers are saying, hey, we trust Biden more than Trump. Now that doesn't mean they're going to vote for Biden, but
within a couple of days is going to be down to close to zero. That's a pretty good job we've done.
I'll pull it up here on Twitter while we're watching here, and I'll grab it. We'll look at it. I know he puts it on screen, but I'll grab it on Twitter while we're listening.
I think we're going to be very good with the coronavirus. I think that at some point that's going to sort of just disappear, I hope. I'll be right eventually. I will be right
understand.
eventually. You know, I said it's going to disappear. I'll say it again.
But does
it's
that
going to
does
disappear.
that discredit
and I'll
you?
be right. I don't think so.
right.
I don't think so. You know why it doesn't discredit? Because I've been right probably more than anybody else.
Then there are masks. From the first day that the CDC said that people should wear masks on April 3rd, you said you weren't going to. You wore a mask for the first time in public at Walter Reed this weekend. Question, the CDC says if everybody wore a mask for 4 to 6 weeks, we could get this under control. Do you regret not wearing a mask in public from the start? And will you consider a national mandate that people need to wear masks?
No, I want people to have a certain freedom, and I don't believe in that, no. And I don't agree with the statement that if everybody wear a mask, everything.
So he just, earlier in this clip, he was talking about how he doesn't, you know, go against the science, and then right here he's going to say he doesn't want to do this, what the science would do for it. Yeah, I have the cognitive test up here on this other screen. We'll pull it up once I do it here, and we'll walk through it. But yeah, it's ridiculous. But you know what? If you really wanted to get reelected, and he just come out and been a good leader right from the good, you know, can't expect that from him. But if he come out and, you know, did something good this way instead of trying to be the bullshit artist he is, he'd be on his way to reelection, right? It's his fuck up here with the COVID stuff that has sent him down the drain, right? More so than all the other stuff he's done. Yeah. I mean, it'd be a much closer race than what it's looking like right now. It's looking, you know, pretty massive sweep, which is good for getting many of the policies that Biden has agreed to and come to a compromise with the Sanders campaign. Now, I would like some of those things to go further in some areas than what he's going to or what he's agreeing to, but if we get those things, that's a step in the right direction.
It disappears. Hey, Dr. Fauci said don't wear a mask. Our Surgeon General, terrific guy, said don't wear a mask. Everybody was saying don't wear a mask. All of a sudden, everybody's got to wear a mask. And as you know, masks cause problems too. With that being said, I'm a believer in masks. I think masks are good. But I leave it up to the governors. Many of the governors are changing. They're more mask into. They like the concept of masks. But some of them don't agree. I do say this. Schools have to open. Young people have to go to school. And there's problems when you don't go to school, too. And there's going to be a funding problem because we're not going to fund, when they don't open their schools, we're not going to fund them. We're not going to give them money if they're not going to school.
This is such a, you know, I hate trying to give advice to Trump. I mean, obviously, he's never going to see this, but this is such a dumb move for your reelection chances, is to push this, the kids going back to school. It is nonsense. Yeah, maybe we can get that stuff there. I think either way, I think the Democratic Party is moving. It's not at the pace that a lot of people would like, but given the work we've done down ballot, the growing of the Progressive Caucus, you know, people in the squad and stuff, they're moving in the right direction. Now, there's some things that they want that, you know, I'll say personally, politically, I don't want, and I think they're bad on, like the general, just like, what do I want to say? Not aversion to like nuclear energy for solving climate change is a big missed opportunity, you know, for the progressives.
If they don't open
2
this.
points on that.
And that's one of the policies I'll look at and say, you know, Biden was better from the get-go because he supports the nuclear energy to getting off there. Well, his stance on Medicare for all has been played up pretty much out of context, kind of thing. Like when you go look at it in context, it's basically, you know, if it passes and they don't have like the secure funding, he's not going to send it through, right? You know, if they can't fund it all or do all that stuff, he's not going to send it through. So if we could get a Medicare for all plan that would do all the funding and send it through, that'd be great. But I mean, I supported Bernie, and I didn't expect his Medicare for all plan to. I expected that to be pared down quite a bit, right? You know, so like the vision and the dental and all that other stuff. His Medicare for all plan was far more robust than anything else in the world. Which, hey, you know, this is where you can say, hey, American exceptionalism, bitch, right? We want the best in the world. But yeah, it wasn't going through as what he had it. So there's going to be a lot of compromises down, further down that way. So hopefully we get this stuff set in and it keeps moving us that way, and we can eventually get there. Like Biden's healthcare plan is more popular than Medicare for all around the nation, right? When you actually dig into different polls and surveys and stuff. So I mean, he's got no reason to move off his plan.
First of all, what the federal government gives is 8%.
It's 10%, and you know what? That's a lot of money.
And you're going to take them. You know where the money goes? It goes overwhelmingly to disadvantaged kids and children with disabilities.
Let the schools.
Why wouldn't you send more money so the schools would be safer?
Let the schools open. Did you ever see the statistics on young people below the age of 18? The state of New Jersey had thousands of deaths. Of all of these thousands, one person below the age of 18 in the entire state. One person. And that was a person that had, I believe he said, diabetes. One person below the age of 18 died in the state of New Jersey during all of this. You know, they had a hard time. And they're doing very well now. So that's it.
The stimulus bill is.
So why is he only looking at New Jersey? There's been several instances. I think it's I have to look. There's at least 100 of kids under 18 dying. At least that many in the U.S. And he's just focusing on New Jersey because he can say, "Oh, there's only one." But there's at least 100 that I'm aware of. But that was about a month ago that I saw that. But you know, and he just blew past like, hey, well then why don't you say, if you're going to open up the schools, why don't you pass something that spends more money on the schools to keep them safe, right? He just blows past that. He doesn't care.
is running out the end of this month. The Republicans say they want liability limits, which the Democrats don't like. You say that you want a payroll tax cut, which even some Republicans are cool to.
Well, a lot of Republicans like it, though.
Will you only sign a bill that has those two provisions?
Well, we're going to see, but we do need protections because businesses are going to get sued just because somebody walked in. You don't know where this virus comes from. They'll sit down at a restaurant. They'll sue the restaurant. The guy's out of business. Right. So we do need some kind of immunity. You do need it, just like you need immunity for the police, okay, whether they like it or not. You need immunity for the police. But they do need a form of immunity. You don't know if they caught it, and nobody's ever going to be able to prove it one way or the other. You can't put these, the people out. Look, the Democrats don't want to do that because they're totally captured by the lobby of lawyers. The lawyers' lobby is probably the most powerful in the country.
What about the payroll tax cut?
I want to see it. I want to see it.
And if it isn't in the bill?
I'll have to see. But, yeah, I would consider not signing it if we don't have a payroll tax cut, yes.
Hot enough for you here, Mr. President?
Oh, there's a nice edit there. I wonder what was in the bit that he edited out. Hopefully, we get the full video at some point. But yeah, that's dumb. Like, you're gonna force, the businesses, like, and Fauci was on was it PBS NewsHour the other day talking about it, and it's like it's these bars and restaurants are the biggest driver of spreading this disease right now, right? So we got to shut them down and do all this other stuff, and he wants, oh no, we'll give them the stimulus, keep them open, and then we'll just make sure that they can't be sued for doing business, doing what they need to do to try to stay afloat, right? Yeah, especially for the employee stuff, like for the mask thing, um, everybody should wear the mask, right? If you want to go into the store, go into anything else, go into the bars, gotta wear them. He doesn't want to make that mandate. He doesn't want to push it for that. So we're gonna get a lot more conservative bitching when more businesses are like, nope, you can't come in without a mask, right? It's not that fucking hard to wear a mask.
It's hot. It's about, sort of almost record-breaking stuff.
We wanted to do it inside. This was your choice.
But I wanted you to sweat a little bit.
Well, we both are. There has been a spike in violent crime in America in recent weeks. We've seen deaths up in New York, deaths up in Chicago, shootings. How do you explain it, and what are you going to do about it?
I explain it very simply by saying they're Democrat-run cities. They're liberally run. They're stupidly run. We have forced them in Seattle to end the CHOP because, we were going in that following day. You probably have heard it. We were getting ready to go in. We were all set. And when they heard that we were going, they set their police force.
Liberal Democrats have been running cities in this country for decades.
Poorly.
Why is it so bad right now?
They've run them poorly. It was always bad, but now it's gotten totally out of control. And it's really because they want to defund the police. And Biden wants to defund the police.
Sir, he does not.
Look, he signed a charter with Bernie Sanders. I will get that one, just like I was right on the mortality rate. Did you read the charter that he agreed to?
It says nothing about defunding the police.
Oh, really? It says abolish. It says defund. Let's go.
All right.
Get me the charter, please.
All right.
Chris, you've got to start studying for these.
He says defund the police.
He says defund the police. They talk about abolishing the police. They talk about illegal aliens pouring.
I look forward to seeing that. Meanwhile, the George Floyd murder.
So Biden has consistently says he doesn't want to defund the police. Now, this is part of the issue, part of the equivocation that using, which will be my criticism of the sloganeering and stuff, right? By saying defund, they can both run and say, hey, they want to abolish the police, cut all the funding to the police, do all that stuff, and they can run with that stuff, right? But if you say, no, it's defund, and then, Biden said, some of Biden's thing was we'll restructure the police, we'll look at other community initiatives and things like that to do that stuff there, and we can redirect, it's possible that we can redirect money in that direction, right? And so, that's defunding the police, right? And so I think it was a mistake using defund the police because you gave them a real easy word that they can manipulate, right? You handed them over there, and it's really difficult to navigate the landscape when they can try to pin that on you. Well, Biden said he's fine with maybe moving some money around. Taking some of the responsibilities away from the police and giving it elsewhere and stuff. So essentially what people who use defund the police mean, right? So he's been out about that stuff, but, he was like, no, I don't want to defund the police, get rid of police altogether. And, like I've always said on this when talking about this, there's some aspects of policing that I think we just need, right? That aren't going to go away, but we can take a lot of stuff away. So I don't know. Divest the police might have been a better term. Maybe I have to think about it to push it around. So you divest the police of certain responsibilities. So you can send the social worker out for like mental health calls or checkups and things like that. Basically everything that you're arguing for, but you have a better, phrase to argue behind.
Has reignited the issue of racism in policing in this country. I want to give you a couple of statistics. Nationwide, blacks are twice as likely, fewer in absolute numbers, but in terms of per capita, blacks are twice as likely to be shot and killed by police as whites are. In Minneapolis, over the last 5 years, police used force against blacks at a rate 7 times that against whites. Can you understand why blacks would be angry at that?
Of course I do. Of course I do. Many whites are killed also. You
I
have to say
understand
that. I mean, many whites are killed. I hate the sound, but this is going on for decades. This is going on for a long time, long before I got here. You know, if you look at what's gone on in Portland, those are anarchists, and we've taken a very tough stand. If we didn't take a stand in Portland, you know, we've arrested many of these leaders. If we didn't take that stand, right now you would have a problem like, they were going to lose Portland. So let's see what this says here.
They're never going to lose Portland, right? You know.
Prosecution, sanctuary cities, incentivize illegal alien, expand asylum, abolish immigration detention. No,
that's not
well, no,
abolish.
well, fine.
Okay.
This thing is many pages long. End prosecution of illegal border crossers. Support deathly, and these are the worst things.
Sir, I'm not disagreeing with you on any of those. I'm disagreeing about defund police. The White House never sent us evidence the Bernie Biden platform calls for defunding or abolishing police because there is none. It calls for increased funding for police departments that meet certain standards. Biden has called for redirecting some police funding for related programs like mental health counseling. This week, you said
all good parts of the plan, all good things to come together on. Yeah, people still take issue with Black Lives Matter, but I don't think as many people are fooled by that, right? Whereas defund the police is much easier, right? There's always going to be an issue with whatever you say. You're right about that, Rhett. It's always going to be that way. But you can minimize it, right? You can make it look more silly and stuff. Make it more difficult for them to run with things that you're not actually advocating for. But I mean, this is a good piece of journalism right here, and I'm surprised Fox News let it go. I'm maybe they're thinking like, ooh, we better rein it in a little bit. We can't be super pro-Trump through this, given that it's looking like he's gonna get swept out of the White House pretty badly. So maybe it's that, but yeah, this is a good job by Chris Wallace. At least for some of this stuff.
That Black Lives Matter and the Confederate flag are both issues of freedom of speech. Yeah. But in the case of the Confederate flag, there are a lot of people who say these were traitors who split from this country, fought this country in large part to preserve slavery. Is the Confederate flag a...
So I think he's whitewashing the reasons for leaving. It was, entirely about slavery, right? So I think that's Chris playing to his base a little bit. Not, yes, it was mostly about slavery, but there's other things you could argue too. So just said, about slavery, keeping the slaves, right? That's all it was about.
Offensive.
It depends on who you're talking about, when you're talking about. When people proudly had their Confederate flags, they're not talking about racism. They love their flag. It represents the South. They like the South. People right now like the South. I say it's freedom of many things, but it's freedom of speech.
So you're not offended by it?
Well, I'm not offended either by Black Lives Matter. That's freedom of speech. And the whole thing with cancel culture, we can't cancel our whole history. We can't.
The fact that the president is saying cancel culture is, I just want to smash my head in, right? Just listen to that come out and be such a term used like it is, but fuck me. Yeah, he got offended by plenty of the Black Lives Matter stuff, so he's lying about that. But stop this cancel culture stuff. And the Southern pride aspect of the Confederate flag, that was something brought back during the Jim Crow times, leading into the Civil Rights Movement, right? That was, the association with the Confederate flag, and then all the Confederate statues were there to, say fuck you to black people, right? So it was brought back, for racist reasons, right? Maybe some of the people in the South today don't recognize it as such, right? They're, you know, a couple generations removed, you know, the younger generation, but, you know, anybody that was alive 50 years ago, no, that's what it was for.
Forget that the North and the South fought.
Well, more than 50 years ago. God, 2020, just looking back, it's like, oh, it's 50 years ago, it's 1970. It's like, Jesus Christ, I'm getting old. I mean, I'm not that old and wasn't alive back then, but, you know, just as it slips further and further away.
We have to remember that. Otherwise, we'll end up fighting again. You can't just cancel all of
But
it.
let me ask you this when it gets to be more than just cancel. Well, maybe this is cancel culture. The National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA, you have threatened to veto it because in the bill, and this is supported by Republicans as well as Democrats, it would rename Army bases named for Confederate generals. Now, this is a bill that funds military operations. It gives soldiers a pay raise.
Yeah.
You're going to veto
No,
that?
because they'll get their pay raise. Hey, look, don't tell me this. I got soldiers, the biggest pay raises in the history of
Understood.
our military. I got soldiers, brand new equipment, brand new jets, brand new rockets, brand new 2.5 trillion. I did more for the military than any president that's ever had this
you're gonna
office.
veto this
because
bill?
I think that Fort Bragg, Fort Robert E. Lee, all of these forts that have been named that way for a long time, decades and decades.
But the
and
military
decades.
says they're for this.
Excuse me. I don't care what the military says. I'm supposed to make the decision. Fort Bragg is a big deal. We won 2 world wars. Nobody even knows General Bragg. We won 2 world wars. Go to that community where Fort Bragg is in a great state. I love that state. Go to the community. Say, how do you like the idea of renaming Fort Bragg? And then what are we going to name it? You going to name it after the Reverend Al Sharpton? What are you going to name it, Chris? Tell me what you're going to name it.
So that's Trump's blatant racism right there, right? You know, oh, it's named after Confederate generals. What do you want to do? Name it after a black person or a civil rights leader? You know, even if you don't like Al Sharpton or anything like that, but like that's not the same thing. Man, oh man. But like the whole erasing the history thing, it's like here, there's like they're named this thing for, you know, venerating and who we hold up as idols and stuff, as nation stuff. And as time goes on, we can look back and say, hey, maybe we shouldn't hold these guys in such high regard in the public, right? We're not erasing our history. We're not doing anything like that. We can change it. And civilizations going back forever have always changed stuff. Yeah, I know, MLK Fort would be a stupid name too, right? Just, I don't know, come up with like a military term or something for it and call it that, or, you know, things like that. But like even like city names, like, so, you know, if he's talking about like city names and stuff will change over time and stuff too, right? Like, you know, if we talk like, I only bring this up because I watch a lot of, you know, I've watched a lot of Last Kingdom, really like that stuff, but like, you know, like the city of York in England or whatever was, you know, it's York now, but before it was Jorvik, and then before that it was Efferwich, you know, during the Anglo-Saxon times, and probably something else, something different, you know, during the Celtic Breton times and the Roman and stuff there. So it changes over time. You can change this and it'll do that stuff. So why they're making such an issue of this, I do not understand. Well, I mean, I do understand, but it's a stupid thing. Yeah, oh, there's plenty of generals that we could do there. There'd still probably be issues with them that we, you know, maybe shouldn't honor all of them, given some of the imperialistic nature of the military and stuff. But I mean, you could certainly take it away from naming it after people who rebelled against the nation, right? Like, the better comparison here is if we named it after, you know, a bunch of, you know, I don't want to quite make the equivocation here, but, you know, if what they say, you know, like Tim Pool's the Antifa insurgency and stuff like that, right? So if we really, for granted, for sake of argument, that Tim Pool's right, this is an insurgent army and all that other stuff, right? He's wrong, but we're, you know, if we just take that there, it'd be naming all our forts after Antifa members, right? Not I'm saying that they're compared that way, but that's the closest analogy here, instead of going straight to, oh, let's name it after a black person.
So there's a whole thing here. We won 2 world wars. 2 world wars, beautiful world wars that were vicious and horrible, and we won them out of Fort Bragg. We won them out of all of these forts that now they want to throw those names away. And no, I'm against that. And you know what? Most other people are. And I don't believe in polls because I see the fakest polls I've ever seen. But that poll is a 64% thing, which actually surprised me.
I don't believe in polls, but let me cite the polls. It's basically I don't like the polls that say I'm wrong, and he's gonna do it later when Chris Wallace brings up the because I saw this clip out of this in the previews, brings up the Fox News polls. He's gonna call it a fake poll right to his face.
We won World War.
Yeah, the beautiful wars is dumb. Like, oh fuck, how do we let this guy get in? Like, oh man. It's got to be a big win for the Democrats and stuff. This, if we can do something crazy and flip Texas and Georgia and all these other places that the polls suggest that maybe Biden could win them, just absolutely embarrass him. Just the landslide history there. Maybe we can start bringing the Republican Party back towards sanity, right? I wouldn't count on it, but because of things like Fox News or OAN and then all the far-right reactionaries on YouTube and in the alternative media. But I mean, that would be the hope.
Wars out of these military bases. No, I'm not going to go changing them. I'm not going to go changing them. I might. Yeah, I might.
At Mount Rushmore on July 3rd, you said that we face a far-left fascism in this country. And then you said this.
Our children are taught in school to hate their own country and to believe that the men and women who built it were not heroes, but that were villains.
You said our children are taught in school to hate our country. Where do you see that?
I just I look at school, I watch, I read, look at the stuff. Now they want to change 1492. Columbus discovered America. We grew up, you grew up, we all did. That's what we learned. Now they want to make it the 1619 Project. Where did that come from? What does it represent? I don't even know.
It's slavery.
That's what they're saying, but they don't even know. They just want to make a change. Cancel culture. I hate the...
Oh my God. And no, Columbus did not discover America. Know your history, right? The Vikings made it to America first, at least from the evidence that we have, right? And that was what? I think like 500 years or something like that. Fuck, when did Eric the Red and those guys go over? Oh, fuck, I forget when they went over, but it was several hundred years beforehand for Christopher Columbus. And you know what? Somebody else would have eventually made it to America from Europe. They've been because they finally had the technology that they could sail, the ocean and stuff like that for the distances that they need to get here. But talks about circumnavigating the globe and stuff go back to, I think, the first century AD, right? So they were Romans and stuff. Like they knew the Earth was round in the 3rd or 4th century, or they had the proofs for it. They had further confirmation from further studies throughout the rest of the BC time, and then we have writings from 1st century AD that you could sail west around the world and get to the other side. They just didn't have the technology to do it. Yeah, the cancel culture stuff. Ugh.
Term actually, but I use
but
it.
Are they teaching
cancel
people
culture
to hate
Oh,
America?
I think so. Yeah.
And they're not, in public school, they're not teaching people to hate America. Like, not at all. This is a conservative lie. We all know it is. So many of our fucking textbooks are, even up in the north and stuff, where maybe you could try to make that argument. You can't, but maybe if you want to do it, are still affected by all the decisions that are made in like Texas, right? Because Texas buys all their books from one place statewide and sends them out. So book companies that do textbooks, they write them to Texas's standards, right? And so it's not, they hate America. And even get into college, right? Like, nothing in my college history classes or anything like that was, hate America, hate these people, do all this other stuff, right? A lot of it was teaching you how to analyze different primary documents and things like that from the time and right papers, right? And so that um, you got just kind of a different state that there was, free black men at the time earlier. That's something you don't know. Doesn't change the issues of slavery, but it's something new that you're not taught in high school, because high school is really simple, really pared down, real straightforward, and oftentimes kind of whitewashed, or because we don't want to make America look bad. And you get to college and you find out it's more complex, and then they say if you go to like a master's, postgraduate, and eventually PhD stuff, the stuff you learn in college, forget about it. It's still too streamlined, right? It's a lot more complicated than that. But yeah, it's not hate America. Yeah, there's plenty of that stuff here, and there's professors tend to be more conservative to begin with, overall across all sorts of fields than the people they think about, right? They think the professors in like gender studies or race studies and things like that are the professors that are running like the economics departments, right? Which is not the case at all. Down with the United States, yeah.
I think so. Look at the professors. Look at what's going on in the colleges. If a conservative goes on a college, and look, we have as many as them. Excuse me. I think, to the best of my knowledge, we're sitting at the White House, and the Oval Office is right behind me. We have as many as them. But
Who's them?
the liberal, radical left, and I'm not talking all. I think liberal. I could tell you I like a lot of liberal people. I like a lot of liberal governors and senators. But Chris, we have a radical left.
He's never said a good thing about a fucking liberal, right? He hates all the Democrats, right? Like, Jesus Christ, So he's lying about that, and then conflating, liberals and the Democrats to leftists and far left people, and it's not, but that's kind of how it goes in this thing.
Destructive ideology, and it's being taught in our schools. And don't act like you're surprised to hear this. There are books written about it, and we can't let that go on. We can't let them change the true meaning of what we're all about. And that's what they're trying to do, and I don't want it to happen. Not on my watch. It's not going to happen on my watch.
Mr. President, you'll be happy to know that Fox News
Thanks for the follow, young male pal.
has a new poll out today, and you're going to be the very first person to hear about it. In the national horse race, Joe Biden leads you by 8 points, 49% to 41. That's, I think, 3-4 points slimmer than it was a month ago. And on the issues, people trust Biden more to handle the coronavirus by 17 points, on race relations by 21 points, and even on the economy, they trust Biden more by 1 point. I understand we still have more than 100 days to this election, but at this point, you're losing.
First of all, I'm not losing, because those are fake polls. They were fake in 2016, and now they're even more fake. The polls were much worse in 2016. They interviewed 22% Republican. Well, how do you do 22% Republican? You see what's going on.
That's just happens who, they got a hold of in the surveys, but the numbers don't reflect that. Like, so when they do the poll numbers in the final and the margin error, all that stuff, they account for how many people, the spread, that are Republican, Democrat, Independent, right? And so they factor that in when they go do the final poll. But the polls in 2016 were not better or worse than what they were now. 2, they weren't wrong for the most part, right? On the national level, Hillary Clinton was like 1 point, off of what the things were, and then most states, especially the ones he won narrowly, were within the margin of error, right? So the polls weren't wrong, right? And I talked to a lot of conservatives and stuff online, on Twitter and stuff and things around, and the first thing they'll do, they'll go find like the New York Times or HuffPost that said, 91% or 95% chance for Hillary to win, as the polls were so wrong. Those are projections, right? And those are subject to a lot of bias and stuff, and how you factor in or how you're going to weight certain elements in certain polls, and which polls you're going to give more favorability to others. But even if we go with it, even if we go, 95 to 5% chance, right? So that's what, 1 in 20 chance that President Trump's going to happen. So if something that's a 1 in 20 chance happens, that doesn't mean that the projections were wrong. Now, some of the the robust projection systems had the raise closer. It was what, 70-30 and 538, something like that, right around those numbers. And so something with a 30% chance happening is not, oh my God, that's so shocking. And oh, you were so wrong. Yeah, he lost popular vote by 3 million votes, right? And I can't imagine he's going to win, make that up this year. So if Biden gets another million votes, even just a million votes, I would imagine that'd be more than enough to squeak by. Now, given the way things are looking right now, blow him out of the water, right? As much as I'm not a fan of Biden and stuff like that, blow this fucker out of the water so we don't get another one.
I have other polls that put me leading. And we have polls where I'm leading. I have a poll where we're leading in every swing state. And I don't believe that first of all, the Fox polls, whoever does your Fox polls, they're among the worst. They got it all wrong in 2016. They've been wrong on every poll I've ever seen.
I must tell you.
No, I'm just telling you. And let me ask you this. So on the economy, so I've always led on the economy by a lot.
I know, which is why I was
Biden
surprised by
can't
this
put
number.
two sentences together. They wheel him out. He goes up.
Ooh, we're getting to the good stuff. We're getting to that cognitive test. Ooh, baby.
Repeats. They ask him questions. He reads a teleprompter, and then he goes back into his basement. You tell me the American people want to have that in an age where we're in trouble with other nations that are looking to do numbers on us.
So let me ask you a direct question. No, I'm going to ask you a direct question about Joe Biden. Is Joe Biden senile?
I don't want to say that. I say he's not competent to be president. To be president, you have to be sharp and tough and so many other things. He doesn't even come out of his basement. They think, oh, this is a great campaign. So he goes in. I'll then make a speech. It'll be a great speech. And some young guys start writing, Vice President Biden said this. He didn't say it. Joe doesn't know he's alive, okay? He doesn't know he's alive. Do the American people want that? Number one. Number two, I built the greatest economy ever built anywhere in the world. Not only in this country, anywhere in the world. Until we got hit with
Bullshit, you didn't build anything. The growth under Trump was the same growth that was happening under Obama. It just kept going and going and going, right? And most experts, given a lot of the what's the term, the inverse yield rate, I think it was, things like that, were pointing to like a 50% chance in 2020 that we were going to have a recession of some sort. And that was before the coronavirus stuff. So there was a lot of stuff bubbling under this that was, coming down, crashing. It was just, would it happen here before the election, or does it happen, in 2021? But so the coronavirus knocked it out right then and there. Yeah, all you got to do is listen to the goddamn experts. Like, do the whole, here's a little, I grew up in Wisconsin, a little Wisconsin history, but the whole Wisconsin idea put forth and kind of executed under Fighting Bob LaFollette, where you use the universities, you use your experts in the field to test policy positions, test all this stuff, then you go and implement them in the government, right? So all you got to do as a leader, right? Go to these institutes, do all this other stuff here, right? And you can sail through pretty easy, right? You look good, look just fine.
with the China virus. We got hit with a virus, shouldn't have happened, and we had to close up. We saved millions of lives. Now,
yeah, but the hit we took was your incompetence, right? And that's why you're getting blown the fuck out in polls.
we've opened it up. Got to go back to school. We're open. We got to do things. We had the best job numbers we've ever had last month. We should have good ones coming up in 2 weeks.
Your job numbers weren't the best you've ever had, right? Like, when you're running a, what did we get up to? Was it 23% unemployment? Something like that. Not quite as high as the Great Depression like they were predicting, but we're still at 11%, over 11%. That's fucking ridiculous, right? And a lot of the jobs, the new jobs that you got, weren't jobs created. They were temporary layoffs and furloughs and stuff like that. that were getting called back to work right as things opened up, right? So you weren't creating any new jobs, anything like that.
Look, I built the greatest economy in history. I'm now doing it again. You see the numbers. The numbers are through the roof. The Democrats are purposely keeping their schools closed, keeping their states closed. I called Michigan. I want to have a big rally in Michigan. Do you know we're not allowed to have a rally in Michigan? Do you know we're not allowed to have a rally in Minnesota? Do you know we're not allowed to have a rally in Nevada? We're not allowed to have rallies
Well, some
in
people
these
would say it's a
Democrat-run
health- but wait a minute,
states.
some people would say that it's a health risk.
Some
sir.
people would say
They
fine,
I mean,
but I guarantee
we
you,
had some issues after
if
Tulsa.
everything was gone 100%, they still wouldn't allow it. They're not allowing me to.
That's a lie. They would allow the rallies, right? They didn't stop you the last time. Yeah, he got back the jobs he lost, and we're still at a really high unemployment rate. And there's plenty of other concerning things, right? Like 32% are going to have either missed or are going to miss this month's rent. We're looking, numbers of like 50% and stuff. If things go there, we're sitting on a time bomb, and with the virus spreading and spiking around in different places around the nation, it's going to go off. Right? Yeah. Now, thankfully, my state, I live in Minnesota, we're doing pretty well, right? We're right around like 3.5% or something like that in terms of infection. Infection, well, it's not infection rate, it's positive test rate. So we're doing good. We're under the 5% that we're supposed to be. We're stayed pretty stable, pretty steady. Had no ill effects from the BLM protests over George Floyd's death. So, in fact, I think there was a study that looks in. The main thing was about 1.4% from the times in Hennepin County and surrounding areas where Minneapolis and St. Paul and stuff are. So we were way below even like the 3.5% we're sitting at. So we're looking good. We're looking rosy. Southern part of the state, some of the more rural stuff, we have a bit of an outbreak. And a few weeks back, I wish I'd covered it a couple weeks back, but they in their reporting, they came out and said, young people are making up like 40% of the new positive test rates. And idiots like fucking, I wish Tim Pool had made a video, because it definitely would have talked about it. So I read this stuff. It's like, 40% of new test rates. That's got to be because of the protests. And for whatever reason, he was smart enough not to put a video out on those numbers. Or at least I missed it. Must have been buried in with a couple other stories. And I just missed it and didn't get to talk about it. But yeah, and then people are like, they only traced a little over 100 to this 2 bars in Mankato, which is outside of the metro area, the Twin Cities metro. So nowhere near where the George Floyd protests were. At over 100 cases, they managed to contact trace back there. And people are like, that's only 100. They said there's 7,500 cases of people in the 20 to 29 range and stuff. It's like, yeah, that 7,500 goes back to January, you numbskull. Right? So it wasn't anything big. There's like, that week there was like 400 cases. And assuming, now you can't assume that all 100, but for sake of argument, 25% coming from there, if that was there. And the other big one, and it wasn't, because the 100 was over, I think about a week and a half, 2 weeks that they caught it. But yeah, the bars have been the biggest issue. And they want to keep those open.
To do it, so they're not allowing me to have rallies.
But
yeah, they were pretty good about that. Like, I love it. The conservative stuff on Twitter that want to try to push it. We'll go and show that. Well, they'll grab a Black Lives Matter protest from like 3 years ago when we didn't have this pandemic, so they didn't have to wear it. And then I'll go look at somebody else and you see, looks about like 2/3 or 3/4 of that picture are still wearing masks. Yeah, there's some people that aren't wearing masks, and that's an issue, but for the most part, most of them are wearing them. And it's just funny. But yeah, and then holding the rallies, like fucking all the people. What was the number, Red? I don't know if you know it off the top of your head. If Maddie was in chat, they would know it right away. But yeah, there's just a huge spike because of the Tulsa rally. And yeah, they don't want you fucking there.
I got to tell you, if I may, sir, respectfully, in the Fox poll, they asked people, who is more competent? Whose mind is sounder? Biden beats you in that.
Well, I tell you what, let's take a test. Let's take a test right now. Let's go down. Joe and I will take a test. Let him take the same test that I took.
Incidentally, I took the test too when I heard that you passed it.
Yeah, how did
it's
you
not
do
the
it?
Well, it's not the hardest test.
No, but
there's a picture and it says, what's that? And it's an elephant.
No. You see, that's all misrepresentation.
Well, that's what it was on the web.
It's all misrepresentation. Because, yes, the first few questions are easy, but I'll bet you couldn't even answer the last 5 questions. I'll bet you couldn't. They get very hard, the last 5
Well,
questions.
one of them was count back from 100 by 7.
And let me tell you,
93.
you couldn't answer.
All right, what's the question?
Many of the questions. I'd get you the test. I'd like to give it. But I guarantee you that Joe Biden could not answer those questions. Okay? And I answered all 35 questions correctly.
You talk about how
I don't even think there's 35 questions, so let's pull that over. So here's the test that he took. All right? They don't have these numbers. There's 30 questions. I don't know where he's getting the other, or 30 points. I don't know. So they're not even 30 questions, but there's 30 points for the stuff. Right? So I don't know where he's getting the 35 from. So I can't imagine he did well. But, this is just tracing, so 1A, 2B, 3C, 4D, 5E, right? Draw the cube, do the clock in there, lion, rhino, camel, face, velvet, church, daisy, red. A little memory thing. So what are these last ones that are really hard? Delayed recall. So they go back to the face, velvet, church, daisy, red, or whatever they used, right? What are these that are difficult? Like, at all? Give this to a 5 point. Yeah, it's like 8. 30 points. But yeah, so I don't know where he got 35 and what are the last 5 questions. Yeah. Yeah, this is like bragging you got a high score on the Wonderlic, right? And if you don't know what that is, that's the NFL test that they give out. Now, part of the issue with the Wonderlic is if you it's about speed too, right? And so, like, I think Destiny took the Wonderlic test, and he's like, "Oh no, this can't be that easy." And he's putting over. It's like, no, this got to be harder than that. So he was really slow at answering questions, and he was doubting himself because he thought, "No, there's no way this can be that easy." The Wonderlic is like super easy to take. Fuck, I wish I remember what my score was when we took it back in college. But yeah, this is something easy, and he's bragging like it's super hard, and all to try to feed his ego. Why would you lie about this? Yeah, there's like a 5-minute recall, and then there was the delayed recall, and they come back again, right? So taking online, it's not that hard.
how you're winning, campaign's going well. Why did you replace Brad Parscale? Isn't that
because he's a great digital guy. We all like him a lot, but I have somebody that was involved. They were all on the 2016 campaign,
right.
And we have Corey and we have all the people. And actually, Steve Bannon's been much better not being involved. He says the greatest president ever. I mean, he's saying things that I said, let's keep Steve out there. He's doing a good job. But they're all involved. If Joe Biden got in, first of all, he won't call the shots.
So you fired him because you're not winning. You're getting your ass beat, right? There's some reports from inside the campaign that Trump was admitted privately that he was losing and he's lost and stuff there. You don't fire your campaign manager if you're winning in all the swing states, right? You're up in all the swing states in the poll. You just wouldn't do it, right? Because you're winning. This is a Trump's losing, and this new guy's not doing enough to rein Trump in, which is hilarious. He's going to be gone.
The people, the radical left people that surround him will call. Religion will be gone, okay? Life, you could forget about that, the whole question of life. Supreme Court.
When you say life, you mean abortion?
Absolutely, 100%. That whole question, which is a very, it's always been a 50-50 thing. It's actually trending a little bit more toward one
when
side.
When you say religion is going to be gone, what does that mean?
Look at what they're doing to the churches. They won't let the churches even open if they want to stand in a field 6 feet apart. We've had churches that wanted to stand in fields 6 feet apart. There has never been an administration that's done so much as I have.
So obviously religion isn't going to be gone with Biden in office, right? This Christian persecution narrative. You don't need to go to church to pray for God, right? There's the bit in the Bible. I forget what chapter and verse. It's been so long, but that suggests that you should pray by yourself and not make a public spectacle of it to go to church and stuff like that, right? I'm paraphrasing, a little off on it, but so you're perfectly fine praying at home. You can do it. Your Bible says it. It's good. It's fine. The reason they don't want the big public gatherings is a lot of the churches, especially the more fundamentalist ones, aren't going to follow social distancing, right? And so instead of trying to micromanage all these churches, you cancel it across the board, right? Yeah, it's probably in Matthew. Like I said, trying to remember all the verses and stuff explicitly and all that stuff. It's been a while, and even though I started my channel was supposed to be more atheist focused channel, I'm glad I kind of put it off for the year because I took as long as I did doing my animation and drawing all that stuff and planning that stuff, and I just kept putting it off that I didn't build up an audience in the atheist community, and then have the rationality rules thing come and put a halt on any kind of growth for the channel, right? Become public enemy number one. So although my channel with my do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street, furnished to be seen by men. Yep. Yeah, I'll just at you. But yeah, so it's like, so I'm glad I didn't start doing the atheism stuff before that all blew up. Now, a lot of attention on my channel, and if I hit the monetization goals in terms of watch hours by the end of the year, a lot of that's going to be my Darth Dawkins debate, right? And so it's funny going to my channel analytics, like, oh, here's a couple new subs this day. A couple days later, whoop, they left. A couple of days later, I get some new ones. Oh, a couple of days later, they left. So they come in, they get drawn in by like the Darth Dawkins stuff. The ones that stick around are the ones that typically aren't the shitheads, right? Oh, you dirty SJW and all this other stuff. It's like, dude, I'm pretty conservative guy, right? In a lot of my economic positions, right? For the SJW circles, right? And I know you made fun of this on your stream earlier at the socially liberal, fiscally conservative stuff, but I'm a pretty fucking free-for-all guy in any of this social stuff. Do you? It doesn't bother me. It doesn't have any effect on me. Go live your life, and I won't get in your way. Yeah, no, I'm openly a capitalist, right? I cite Milton Friedman on certain issues. I also laugh at Milton Friedman on other issues. I used to be a libertarian coming out of. I got real into the Ron Paul stuff coming out of high school. And over time, I found the flaws in a lot of the political philosophy undergirding a lot of what libertarians believed. And, I left it, right? Because the funniest thing about Ayn Rand's objectivism is that I can use that moral philosophy and argue for everything Ayn Rand opposed. So it's not a very good moral philosophy to hold on to, right? It just takes difference of perspectives, and I still hold on to the conservative label, the fiscal conservative label kind of thing, is because I can go and draw plenty of my ideas. I can go all the way back to Adam Smith, Thomas Paine, John Locke, all this stuff a couple hundred years ago, and find support for a lot of things that I hold, dear and well and stuff. So like Adam Smith supported co-ops, right? He's or when you were going to tax people, taxes should be paid by those that can most afford them, right? So progressive taxation, right? He didn't say anything on like a UBI or anything like that, but you had Thomas Paine, right? Supported a UBI and agrarian justice and stuff. So I can go back to these liberals and all this other stuff there, and support worker co-ops and unions, so like David Ricardo, another classical economist, right? Economist, excuse me. Ugh, I some long, but yeah. So I can support a lot of things that most conservatives today think is completely antithetical to capitalism, right? They bought into the post-World War II anti-communism stuff that basically caught up any kind of government involvement. But and it's not the case. Like Milton Friedman supported a form of UBI, right? He supported a negative income tax, right? Part of his idea was that means-tested welfare programs create what's called a welfare trap, right? So where, to get off those programs and to make more money, do all that other stuff, you have to really make more money, find something that can pay more money. Because if you make, I think, oh God, why am I drawing the name? Diana, Lavender Lady. She says if she made like $50 on YouTube from her YouTube channel, she'd lose all her benefits, right? And so you're taxed, really poor in the society are taxed at well over 100% to get off those programs, right? To expand their stuff there. And so he proposed a negative income tax. Now, I support a much higher negative income tax than what he would probably support if he were still alive. But there's things like that. And even in like the neoliberal structure, right? That a lot of people hate in economics. The government's job is to preserve competition, right? So I support. I agree with a lot of that stuff. So like the competitive nature and stuff inside capitalism when regulated so things can be competitive, like in the neoliberal model. It works well, right, for things here. But I can even go back to Adam Smith that there's some places that the market just doesn't work, right? And you can throw it away in favor of the common good, right? So I can support, very quote unquote socialized medicine, as a capitalist and be just fine with that. So there's a lot of these things that kind of get pared down into really caricatures. So yeah. So I mean, I see a lot of good in the markets and what they do, right? So if anything, I kind of come across, quite a bit like Vosh a little bit, who is far further left than me. But like we agree on the benefits of the market system and stuff like that, and what it does, which is why it bothers me when he says when he talks about, well, just make everything a co-op and you have market socialism. It's like that's not what that term means, my dude. Right? Like market socialism wasn't a term until the 1920s or 30s, when talking about it, and the people that were advocating for what market socialism was didn't actually believe in real markets. They were kind of pseudo markets. It's kind of hard to explain. But they like to lump in what's called the Ricardan socialists in the early 19th century into this market socialism and grab that, which is David Ricardo being a classical economist, excuse me, economist. Why do I say it? I don't know. I stumble along and say, I'm going to say economy, and then I'm like, no, I'm talking about a person that's an economist. But he supported that there, and so there's a group that they named like the Ricardan Socialists, right? And so if you're going to draw, and I find it funny, if you're going to draw a lot of your leftist economic theory from Marx said that's not socialism, right? Laughed at that, and a lot of things that people consider socialism. So I find some contradictions in Vosh's opinion on what market socialism is.
From tax cuts to regulation cuts to rebuilding the military to getting choice for the vets. Nobody's done the things I've done. Nobody. In 3.5 years, no other president's been able to do what I've done.
You're running in large part on the economy. You built it once. Now we have the coronavirus. You're going to build it again. And in fact, you had great jobs numbers in May. You had solid jobs numbers in June. But I want you to look at some projections. The Nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office says the unemployment rate at the end of the year will be 10.5%. J.P. Morgan says in the fourth quarter, GDP will contract by 6.2%. With states now...
Better extend that fucking $600 a month. Maybe raise it. Expand that UBI. Hold people over. do that stuff because we're still in the rough stretch. Yep, the trans soldiers, trans vets. He doesn't care about the soldiers. I mean, look all the shit he said about McCain, right? On the campaign trail. Who was the oh fuck, what's the medal? It's the gold or whatever. The recipient. Fuck, it was but anyways, that the guy had died and he's talked all this shit to there. Yeah, what was it, the cons, I think? God, I forget all that stuff there, but yeah, he shat all over them before the election, all that stuff. So he doesn't care about anybody but himself. Right?
Rolling back some of the reopening
On purpose.
and well, there are a lot of Republican states that are doing it, like Texas. But here's
they'll be open very soon.
Let me just ask my question.
There's no reason for
Isn't there a-
California to be doing what they're doing,
All right, but
except for November 3rd.
with the states,
I mean, California is being hit pretty fucking hard right now. They need to do it, right? So they're struggling with it right now. Yeah, the Khan family.
shutting back the reopening, in a lot of cases, new lockdowns, won't the economy still be a problem for you on election
I don't think so. I think the economy is expanding and growing beautifully. Now, the Democrats want to keep it closed as long as possible because they think that's good for election. But I think the economy is doing very well. Now we're coming back, and we're coming back at a level that nobody would have thought possible. And by the way, take a look at a gauge, whether you like it or not, the stock market. The stock market, NASDAQ, hit its all-time high 2 weeks ago, and it's beaten it 14 different times, okay? The stock market, Dow, etc., is 1,000 points away from its all-time high, meaning very close.
I mean, well, so if it hit its all-time high a couple weeks ago and it's down 4,000 points, it's going down again because of this issue, Trump. But yeah, just going by the stock market, given all the short-term lending, right, to keep what's the term? Just forget it, but to keep those things liquid and running and stuff is what kind of kept the stock market from really bottoming out. And even then, the stock market going up isn't going to reflect the average American's lives. Yeah. Well, and earlier in this discussion, he shared the CDC heads thing that said, winter 2020-2021 is going to be worse than anything we've ever seen. And given what this numbskull wants to do with the schools, I kind of, I think it's going to be the case, right? Because he's going to do what he thinks there. And which is, like I said, I don't know if you're here for Rhetoric Discourse. Earlier on, I mentioned there was a report that came out in the New York Times, I think it was. They said that the internal plan is to kind of just let the virus rage on because they think that's his best chance to winning because it's going to suppress voter turnout, right? So if that inside rumor and that source is correct, he's purposely trying to fuck us because he thinks it's going to help him win. Oh yeah, we'll definitely hit 200,000 dead. Well, in the winter part, in normal flu season, can you imagine? We're the normal season we get like flu, pneumonia, and that's the highest peak in infections and deaths and all that stuff from that. You put this fucking thing in there too. Oh, it's gonna fucking ravage us. Just take us all over the place if we don't do something smart going forward. But like I said, with that report from the New York Times, I think it was, he wants to run spread around because everybody's gonna hide in their homes and not go out and vote, and he's gonna win. So fuck this asshole. Even more than when I say fuck him every time we talk about him.
We're going to have a stock market, perhaps, on November 3rd, that's the highest in history.
I want to talk to you about Obamacare. Since the pandemic hit, millions of people have lost their jobs and thereby lost their health insurance, and almost 500,000 have signed up for Obamacare. Your administration just announced that you're signing on to a lawsuit to overturn Obamacare.
And replace it.
Why does it make sense to overturn Obamacare,
Because
with which people now are relying on? Democrats are going to say the man who's wanted to kill Obamacare is going to take away the protection for pre-existing conditions.
First of all, we got rid of the individual mandate. Pre-existing conditions will always be taken care of by me and Republicans, 100%.
But you
No, it won't. You'll do away with it. You'll eat away and throw it away. And you don't have a plan, right? There's, as far as I know, there's nothing in Congress, in either house right now, that's set to do what he says is going to happen in the next couple weeks.
You've been in office 3.5 years. You don't have a plan.
Well, we haven't had, excuse me, you heard me yesterday. We're signing a health care plan within 2 weeks, a full and complete health care plan that the Supreme Court decision on DACA gave me the right to do. So we're going to sign an immigration plan, a health care plan, and various other.
So, do you have any idea what he means by the DACA decision affecting what he can, he can sign a healthcare plan in 2 weeks? What he's talking about there? My only guess, I have to go back. I haven't looked at the decision in a while. But I thought the decision that they had is that they could kick like DACA recipients off and not actually anything to do with having a healthcare plan. But maybe you know better. Rhetoric and discourse. Yeah, well, so my kind of hope when he won, right? I didn't want him to win. I didn't vote for him. I voted third party, but I thought I was in one of the blue wall states at the time that fell, and so I thought, well, it's going to be Hillary. You can vote here. I'm going to vote third party, give them the votes to up there, get them the funding, get them on things for the next election, kind of thing. But my hope when it turned out that he was going to win was that, given that he's talked positively in the in recent years, even a bit on the campaign trail about like universal health care and things like that, and my thinking is, well, maybe he's playing, maybe like in the best case scenario, you can think maybe, a little 4D chest, and then he'll go out and do all these things that he's raved are good policies, good programs in the past, and he'll put them through. Yeah, DACA's an executive order. He could pull that anytime he wanted to, right? So I don't see how that affects healthcare, other than, you can prevent DACA recipients from getting healthcare, right? But there's nothing in either house of the Congress that I am aware of right now that resembles any kind of healthcare plan that he can sign in 2 weeks, right? There's nothing.
Plans, and nobody will have done what I'm doing in the next 4 weeks. The Supreme Court gave the President of the United States powers that nobody thought the President had by doing what they did, their decision on DACA. And DACA is going to be taken care of also. But we're getting rid of it because we're going to replace it with something much better. But we got rid of already, which was most of Obamacare, the individual mandate. And that I've already won on. And we won also on the Supreme Court. But the decision by the Supreme Court on DACA allows me to do things on immigration, on health care, on other things that we've never done before. And you're going to find it.
Oh, yeah, he's definitely lying about having a plan. Like Chris brought up, is that you're trying to get the rest of DACA thrown out, right? Now that you strip the individual mandate, you're petitioning the Supreme Court to get rid of the rest of it, right? Because the individual mandate was so important to it, then it's gone, so everything else has to be struck down and the law can't keep going as is. So hopefully he loses on that, or it gets pushed beyond the election, which hang in there, Ginsburg. We need you, girl.
To be a very exciting 2 weeks.
Your niece, Mary Trump, has written a book about you and your family, and one of her main points is that she says your dad, Fred Trump Sr., damaged the whole family. And here's what she says about what you learned from your father.
He learned to become the killer you mentioned, the man who needs to succeed at all costs, who will do anything to get attention, financial rewards, and to win.
Do you see any truth in that?
My father liked to win. My father was a very good man. He was a strong man. It's disgraceful that she said that. She was not exactly a family favorite. We didn't have a lot of respect or like for her. I would have never said that, except she writes a book that's so stupid and so vicious, and it's a lie. My father was a great, wonderful man.
Let me just ask you this
But
question.
this is not a person that I spent very much time with, very little time. And now I'm glad.
You've developed a pretty thick skin over the years from decades of attacks.
Ah! Oh, he's fluffing Trump really good there with that one.
In New York tabloids, now from the press here, and your political opponents here in Washington. But even for Donald Trump, does it hurt you at all to be attacked in such personal terms by a member of your own family?
It hurts me more about attacking my father, not being kind to my mother. I have a mother who was like a saint. She was incredible. She was an incredible woman. And she was nasty even to my mother. She's a very scarred person. She was not.
Oh yeah, the presidential harassment tweet. Oh, that's gold. He wasn't the leader of the free world. The shit he says on Twitter would be funny. But now it's just like, oh, just don't set the nukes off. Don't do it.
Much of a family person. But look, let me just tell you, my father was, I think he was the most solid person I've ever met. And he was a very good person. He was a very, very good person. He was strong, but he was good. For her to say the kind of things, a psychopath, that he was a psychopath, anybody that knew Fred Trump would call him a psychopath. And you know what? If he was, I would tell you. And I would say, you know, Chris, I was with my father and it was impossible. My father he was tough. He was tough on me. He was tough on all of the kids, but tough in a solid sense, in a really good sense. For her to say, I think the word she used was psychopath. What a disgrace. She ought to be ashamed of herself. That book is a lie.
Some people were surprised when you agreed to this interview, to sit down with me.
What are you going to ask?
Especially because of some of the mean tweets that you've said about me. Mike Wallace wannabe, nasty and obnoxious. I will tell you, after that one, my son Peter, who you've met, called and he said, nasty, no, obnoxious, maybe. But here's the question. One of your beefs seems to be that I put Democrats on the show and I ask them questions. And I guess the question I have is, don't you understand it's my job to put Democrats on as well as Republicans and to ask them probing questions just like I ask Republicans?
I'm not a big fan of Fox, I'll be honest with you. They've changed a lot since Roger Ailes. And I watch people like Swalwell, who I don't even know. He goes on the show. He got less than 1%. All of a sudden, he's on being interviewed for endless.
Yeah, but I interviewed Nancy. Wait, I interviewed Nancy.
Nastiest people.
I interviewed. You sent one tweet after I interviewed Nancy Pelosi, and in the interview, I asked her specifically about the fact in February you were in Chinatown pitching tourism while the virus was spreading. If the president underplayed the threat in the early days, Speaker Pelosi, didn't you as well? Isn't that legitimate to talk to the Speaker of the House?
Look, I know you very well. I respect you a lot. I respect your father a lot. I thought he was one of the most talented journalists there are. And you likewise are a very talented person. I do think this. I think you are very...
Oh boy. Has Trump said anything today? I'm gonna go dig up the tweets. Alright, I can't imagine after this aired that Trump was very happy. Let's see. Do a quick search. Let's look at your timeline, Trump, unless you've still been silent. 9 hours ago, so that was before this. He hasn't said anything since. I'd watch his Twitter for to see the bombshells that he drops this week, but he's not a fan.
I think you are toward the Democrat side, which is okay. I mean, it's okay.
It's not true. Watch the James Comey interview I did in December. 17 significant errors in the FISA process, and you say that it was handled in a thoughtful and appropriate way.
Yeah, he's right. I was wrong.
But you make it sound like you're a bystander, an eyewitness. You were the director of the FBI while a lot of this was going on, sir.
Sure. I'm responsible for that. That's why I'm telling you I was wrong. I was overconfident as director in our procedures.
you couldn't do as tough an interview with Comey. I'd like to think I treat everybody the same.
It just
They should have did that 4 years ago. Take the phone away from him.
seems to me that you are very prone to be nice to the Democrats, and maybe I'm wrong about that, Chris, but it's an honor to be with you.
Remember, Trump said that he's a friend with a lot of liberals, a lot of Democrats, a lot of stuff like that earlier, as he tried to say that it's not partisan shit, right? I mean, it's a lie when he says it, but I just find it funny that he turns it on this attack.
It's fine. I love it. I love it that it's close to 100 degrees out
Your
today.
choice again.
Yeah, I know. That's okay.
I'm not saying you're going to lose. I am not saying that. We saw how you turned it around last time.
I don't think I'm going to lose at all.
But if you did, how crushing would it be to you?
First of all, let me just tell you something. I know everyone wants to know that because they'd love to see me lose. Finally.
I am not
You know how
saying
many
that at all.
times I've been written off? Do you know how many times I've been written off?
I've done some of it myself,
My
sir.
whole
I'm not doing
life.
it this time.
Don't do it because.
But how crushing would it be?
And you know why I won't lose? Because the country, in the end, they're not going to have a man who's shot. He's shot. He's mentally shot. Let him come out of his basement, go around. I'll make 4 or 5 speeches a day. I'll be interviewed by you. I'll be interviewed by the worst killers that hate my guts. They hate my guts. There's nothing they can ask me that I won't give them a proper answer to. Some people will like it. Some people won't like it.
I agree with that.
But look,
You answer the
let
questions.
Biden sit through an interview like this. He'll be on the ground crying for mommy. He'll say, mommy, please take me home.
Well, we've asked him for an interview, sir.
He can't do an interview. He's incompetent. There's a number you don't mention. It's called the enthusiasm number. The enthusiasm for Trump is through the roof.
I
Even higher.
have mentioned it.
Even higher than last time. The enthusiasm for Biden is non-existent. Everyone knows he's
But
shot.
the enthusiasm against you
Well,
is
that's
high.
okay. That's his only shot. I mean,
Right.
that's his only shot. I agree. And those people know I'm doing a good job, but there's something in my personality that they don't like. Because look, nobody's done what I've done. Biden wants to come in.
I mean, fucked up a pandemic response, right? Throwing the American children stuff to the wolves this fall, threatening to, all the stuff in the trans-military ban, all the shit that he's done. Like, that's not something to brag about, but it's something like in some of the polls I've seen, it's like 50% of the respondents said they'll never vote for Trump. Right, which I think it was like 20% for Biden, right? So it's not looking good for him. Yeah.
And ruin
It's just too bad that he's going to do it at the loss of so many American lives, right? And wrecking of so many American lives.
our country. Triple your taxes. He wants to do things. He wants to add regulations that I've all cut. And we still have regulation, a lot of regulation, but I've cut it down to a level that nobody ever thought possible. He will destroy this country, but it won't be him. It will be the radical left. The same type ideology that took over Venezuela, one of the richest countries in the world. They now have no water, they have no food, and they have no medicine. That's going to happen
Two final questions.
if he wins.
I wish, so not the Venezuela stuff, but I wish Biden was going to be controlled by Bernie Sanders, right? I wish for that on a lot of issues, right? There's issues that Biden was better than Sanders on. Like I said, the climate change plan, Biden is better than Bernie, right? And a lot of the progressives that just are so averse to nuclear, right? And that's one of the policies that I think Biden might have been the only Democrat that supported it in the presidential primary. Maybe Klobuchar or something like that, but yeah, certainly not from the progressives. And if we want to get off fossil fuels, all the data shows to do it, we're going to need nuclear energy. No, like he's gonna. So Biden's a, I've read some things on his past and some analysis of his stuff. That through the years he's been pretty middle of the road of wherever the Democrats are, right? So I think $15 minimum wage if he wins, and he wins big like the polls are showing. If it's close and we don't get the Senate, the Democrats don't get the Senate, he's not going to get much done, right? But if he gets both, the Senate and the House, he's got all three branches of government, I think we're going to get $15 minimum wage, right? That's a pretty across the board Democrat policy now, is support for $15 minimum wage. So I think that's something that'll come. right? So if you're thinking, oh, I don't trust Biden, I don't like Biden, I don't like any stuff there, but you support like a $15 minimum wage, Biden's gonna do it because it's mainstreaming the Democratic Party to do it, right? There's not a lot of resistance to it, so if get him the House, get him the keep the House and get him the Senate, and hopefully build him up. I don't know if supermajority is possible. I have to look at the numbers, but if we could get him to that, yeah, we can get that stuff done. There's plenty of other things where the Democratic Party's where we want them. There's other places where they're not, and that's probably the stuff that's definitely not going to get done, or it's going to be severely watered down. Yeah, I would hope so too, right? Look down ballot, find more progressive candidates, support them. If you don't like the Democratic Party in general, support them down ballot, and if they've gotten one already and won like their primaries and are going to be on the ballot, get them in, right? Just what you got to do, and eventually this is going to keep pushing and changing, right? Like all the data shows that the Democratic Party has been moving further to the left over the last 20 years. Not as far and fast as like someone like Rhetoric and Discourse in chat would like, even myself for the most part, but because there's some things in the progressive platform I don't agree with either, so I wish we'd have some people in the Democratic Party that would do some of the things that I'd want, but that aren't quite there. But because nobody in the Republican Party is going to do what I want, I'll take the alternatives, right?
In general, not talking about November, are you a good loser?
I'm not a good loser. I don't like to lose. I don't lose too often. I don't like to lose.
But are you gracious?
You don't know until you see. It depends. I think mail-in voting is going to rig the election. I really do.
Are you suggesting that you might not accept the results of the election?
I have to see. Look, Hillary Clinton asked me the same thing.
No, I asked you the same thing in the debate. There is a tradition in this country. In fact, one of the prides of this country is the peaceful transition of power, and that no matter how hard fought a campaign is, that at the end of the campaign, that the loser concedes to the winner. Not saying that you're necessarily going to be the.
Yeah, there's a lot of issues that need fixing. Unfortunately, the system wasn't set up to move as fast as we would like it, right? That's part of the issue, right? And there's good reason for that too. Like if the system moved as fast as we liked it and we were in a position where Trump won again, imagine all the damage Trump could do with the speed of that system too. So there's some pros and cons to having a system that doesn't move as fast as people want it to in either direction, right? So there's some benefits to that because you don't want to set all this stuff out here, move fast here, and then all of a sudden they don't like it. The next guy comes in and they run all the way over, and we got Hitler as head of the U.S. Right? I think given the way the system's structured, it's difficult for seeing that in there. Trump's the closest we've gotten to him, and we got to blow him out and show that. That's not a path that future Republicans should go down.
The loser or the winner, but that the loser concedes to the winner and that the country comes together in part for the good of the country. Are you saying you're not prepared now to commit to that principle?
What I'm saying is that I will tell you at the time. I'll keep you in suspense.
Well,
okay?
Chris.
And you know what? She's the one that never accepted it.
I agree.
She never accepted her loss, and
but
she looks like a fool.
Can you give a direct answer?
I mean, she accepted the loss. You're in office, right? She never sued to get you out of there, any of that other stuff, right? So she's accepted the loss.
You will accept the election?
I have to see. Look, I have to see. No, I'm not going to just say yes. I'm not going to say no, and I didn't last time either.
Whether it's in 2021 or 2025, how will you regard your years as President of the United States?
I think I was very unfairly treated. From before I even won, I was under investigation by a bunch of thieves, crooks. It was an illegal investigation.
But what about the
Russia,
good?
Russia,
what about?
I mean, this is Obamagate. You weren't under investigation, right? They weren't spying on your campaign. That's a lie. The unmasking, I've covered this before, but the unmasking is just a process. So when you get a redacted report and it says this, and there, and you got the names and stuff redacted, and you're kind of like, well, what are they talking about? Is this like some close friend? Is this something here? Can we get more information, understand this intelligence report? They'll put in a request for an unmasking. And, you know, the Trump side, the Republican side, doesn't like to say it, but Trump every year has asked for far more unmaskings, the Trump administration, than under Obama, right? So there's big hypocrisy there with him. But it's basically just like, all right, I need to understand this report better. Can we unmask this American and see what they're not spying on you, right? And just because they put a request in doesn't necessarily mean that it was granted. We don't track that for some reason, who got it granted or anything like that, for see if there's a misuse or abuse in there. We only track requests, right? So when they name like the 15 different people in the different departments or whatever, some of them you don't think might have anything to do with it, or which departments I can't hold there, but it's like those 15 people not necessarily got those names redacted. And you know what? If there's an issue with that too, if you like, I have some issue with the spying stuff, to fix that. But according to the current rules, there's nothing wrong with requesting the unmasking, right? And it's not spying on you when they do so. You just got caught up in it. Now, given that I have issues with the government, the spying, especially the NSA stuff, I prefer the NSA go bye-bye for the most part. You know, things like that would go, quit spying on us, quit all that stuff that Snowden dropped, right? But that's a different conversation, right? He's not violating the rules as they are, as they exist, right?
The good parts there.
No, I want to go this. I have done more than any president in history in the first 3.5 years, and I've done it suffering through investigations where people have been, General Flynn, where people...
I mean, that's a lie. So the whole first 100 days comparison and analysis is FDR's doing, right? Given how much FDR did to help us get out of the Great Depression, right? So that's where I'm right on that, right? On my history, it was FDR that we get the first 100 days from. I don't know when we look at the analysis. But, yeah, so you're not the one that's done the most. Hell, you got nothing done you promised in the first 100 days.
People have been so unfairly treated. The Russia hoax, it was all a hoax. The Mueller scam, it was all a scam. It was all false. I made a bad decision on one bad decision, Jeff Sessions, and now I feel good because he lost overwhelmingly in the great state of Alabama. Here's the bottom line. I've been...
And seeing how much Trump trashed Sessions, you see Sessions pulled a bit of a Ted Cruz and came right out and suckled up to Papa Trump. I know, he was impeached, all that other stuff, but oh man, but yeah, it's just so funny how they'll fall in line because they know how radicalized they've made the base, Republican base.
Been very unfairly treated, and I don't say that as paranoid. I've been everybody says it. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, but there's tremendous evidence right now as to how unfairly treated I was. President Obama and Biden spied on my campaign. It's never happened in history. If it were the other way around, the people would be in jail for 50 years right now. That would be Comey, that would be Brennan, that would be all of this, the two lovers, Strzok and Page. They would be in jail now.
I said earlier, they weren't spying on you. That's not what happened. The Obamagate thing is the biggest fabrication. You know, fabricated conspiracy theory that didn't come from Alex Jones.
Now, for many, many years, they would be in jail. It would have started 2 years ago, and they'd be there for 50 years. The fact is, they illegally spied on my campaign. Let's see what happens. Despite that, I did more than any president in history in the first 3.5 years.
Mr. President, thank you. Thanks for talking with us.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And
Oh. Alright, that's that there. Oh, that was a mess of an interview. Hopefully it fucks them pretty good in the polls that see that. Especially affects it on the Fox News viewers. Right? Those are the ones that could use a come to Jesus moment about them.